2020 has finally come to an end, and the Ride Warrior Choice Awards are back again. Voters from all over the world have submitted their rankings, and the results are in. The best 32 wood and 32 steel roller coasters as voted by you, the fans, are ready to battle it out for a spot in the championship belt. Can Voyage at Holiday World and Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point defend their titles yet again, or will new contenders rise to the top? It's time to find out what rides have made the cut this year. It's the 9th annual Thrilling 32 Bracket Challenge, and it starts right now with the Thrilling 32 Selection Show on this very special episode of COASTER-net on
Well. It's been almost 10 years, and the same thing every year. Same coasters, same winners, same losers. Thrilling 32 is rigged, always has been, always will be. Danny Miller and Andy Rebar, whatever your name is, are working against Dark Side. Rob Dole chose Maverick to lose before you all changed your show format. I've been wearing masks before any of you. Show format, everything. It's almost a decade old, Miller. It's almost as old as you, and your show hasn't changed. Well, that stops now. I'm not going another year with the same old boring format. We're changing it now. Welcome to the new experience. Now, back to some quality content.
Throughout time, roller coasters have come and gone. Only some become legends for their intensity and thrills. Each and every year, coaster fans like you venture to the parks, searching for that one special ride that stands out above the rest. You submitted your rankings, and now it's time to reveal the group of elite roller coasters that you have voted as the best of the best. COASTER-net Uncut is proud to present the 2021 Thrilling 32 Coaster Rumble!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Thrilling 32 this year. The 2020 season has come to an end. We're into the calendar year of 2021. Certainly trying to make 2021 a better year than 2020. And Andy, how are we going to try and do that? We're going to do it with the Thrilling 32. This is our favorite time of year. Everybody, hundreds of people, as they do every year, voting in the Ride Warrior Choice Awards, voting on all sorts of different categories, ranking their favorite wood and steel coasters. And we've come up with the rankings for the 2020 season, and we're ready to kick off this year's Thrilling 32. But Andy, you and I have been talking about this for a couple of years now. You know, the people are getting better each and every year. The scores
They're getting bored, Danny Miller. They're bored with brackets. Nobody likes brackets. Brackets are passé. Everyone on Twitter does stupid brackets. They do it in the NCAA.
Well, we started the coaster brackets, and then, like most good things, everybody started copying us.
Everyone started doing it, and it's boring. It's picking this and picking that, and we're talking about the same damn matchups every single year. Danny, I have an idea. Let's throw it all out.
And you and I have been talking about this even on the air. We've said we're thinking about some ideas of how to, just change it up a little bit. And Andy, I think we've got the solution.
This is it, Danny. So we got the solution here. It is, for the first time ever, the first ever Coaster Rumble.
Yes. Now, Andy, this I am so excited about this because this is a complete game changer, right? I mean, we've got the belt. We can see it on your back wall there. The Coaster Championship belt is hanging on the wall back there. And we've been doing the belt for a couple of years ago, and you're the wrestling guy, so explain to the folks what we're doing.
So here's how it's going to work. We put together this one little slide here that will give you an idea of how this is going to go. So we're going to go through. So you're going to have to do all of this now. So before, you were picking matchups and you were picking, this ride versus that ride. And then going forward, and then round 2, round 3, round 4.
Okay. It was all head to head. It was very simple, very
simple. Okay. So, but we're going to throw this together. So if you've ever watched a classic battle royale or the classic Royal Rumble, what we're going to do is we're going to throw 8 roller coasters together in one group. Now, there were 8 coasters in a region before, so this is really not drastically different. But what you're going to do in round 1 is pick, of those 8 coasters, which of the 4 do you think were the highest ranked? So just as before, you were picking what one ride, so it was, Voyage versus, Outlaw Run. Which of those 2 rides did you think was higher ranked? Now you have a field of 8, and you have to pick which 4 you think were the higher ranked rides. Okay, so that's one round. That's round 1. You're going to have to do that 4 times. Correct, Danny? 4 times?
4 times in each bracket. So the number of coasters has not changed. It's still the 32 wood, 32 steel. And instead of the head-to-head matchups all the way through, round 1 is picking the top 4 of the 8 in the group. No particular order. You just have to identify the 4 highest ranking rides in the group. That's in the first round. Now tell us about the second round, because those 4 coasters, this is where we've really changed things, and this is where the emphasis on the points comes in, because round 2 is now the most valuable round of the contest.
So round 2 now, this is where it gets real interesting, like Danny just said. You have to take those 4 coasters and you have to rank them 1 to 4. So you have to imagine, okay, of those 4 coasters that you just selected, which one is going to appear the highest on the final tally, which one's going to appear the second highest, the third highest, and the fourth highest. Now, in that group, you could theoretically have, we have a list of 50 coasters at the end. We already gave you the top 32. So in that group, you could theoretically have numbers 3, 7, 9, and 20, depending on how the rankings go. Okay. So you just have to identify, of those 4, which one is going to be the highest ranked of those 4 in the final tally? Which one's going to be the second highest ranked of those 4 in the final tally? And which one's going to be the third and fourth highest ranked of those 4 in the final tally? So you kind of have to think of it. So 1, you have to get them right. You have to get the selections right in round 1, just like you did before. This is no different. Round 2 now, you are picking which ones are that of those 4, you're ranking them, you're categorizing them, you're ranking them 1 to 4 based on how you think they're going to go in the final tally, just like you did before. Correct, right, Danny?
Well, right. I mean, the premise of the whole contest has not changed. You are still trying to predict what the results of the Ride Award Choice Award rankings are, but now we're just making you do it in a different way. So, like I said, you got a group of 8. You're taking those 8, deciding which 4 were the highest 4 of that group of 8. And then those 4 that you selected, you're now ranking them in the order that you think they will appear on those final rankings when we get to the championship show. And by doing that, we've actually eliminated a round out of the contest here, because when you rank those 4, whichever one you rank as the highest, that is now your selection for the final 4, the group champion, if you will, to move on to the final 4. So we're going to cut it from 8 down to 16 in round 1. But then in round 2, we're actually cutting the field from 16 to 4, but you still have to rank all of the rides. So that's the trickier part. You're not just picking which one advances anymore. You actually need to rank them. So in the first round, picking those 4 rides, that's each worth 1 point. So each group is worth 4 points total in the first round. But the second round is worth 2 points per correct ranking. So the second round is actually worth twice as much as the first round. And then you get down to your final four. The final four is worth 8 points per selection, like it always has. And the champion is worth 16 points, like it always has. So technically speaking, the second round is worth, every round is worth 16 points, except for the second round, which is worth 32 points in wood and steel. So the second round is actually worth double all the other rounds.
So guys, I know it sounds confusing when you're getting inundated with this at the beginning.
We'll give you an example as we get into the first group. So
round 3 and 4 are the same as they've always been. It's a final. You're picking the final four. You're picking the championship. Danny, what have we always told people to do? Work backwards. Backwards. So your final four. Your championship. Your final four becomes your number ones in each of those rankings. They have to be. And then rounds 1 and 2 is just you're doing the same task, but in a different way. So you're still picking. So instead of picking head to head, you're picking more overall in groups instead of looking at, this versus that or this versus that.
Yeah.
You're looking at, okay, of this field of 8, which are the 4 best rides? Once I have those 4 best rides, how would I rank those 1 to 4? And how do I think they're going to end up on the final tallies? So it's going to require maybe a little bit more thinking, but rounds 3 and 4 are the same as they always have been. The championship is a head-to-head. The final four is a head-to-head. You're picking, final four, on the left side of the bracket and on the right side of the bracket. If Danny did them correct this year, who the hell knows?
Well, and Andy, this new format, the roller coaster Royal Rumble here, the Thrilling 32 Coaster Rumble, this is going to benefit people who have taken our advice over the years of working backwards, like you said, because really, if you work backwards, you pick which ride out of each group you think is in the final four. Then you've got your final four, like you said, final four championship, that's the same. Then if you work backwards, you kind of look at the 8 and you say, well, which 4 ranked higher? That's round 1. And then you sort of just, you rank them. If people have been working backwards, taking all 32 rides and maybe making their list of how they think the whole 32 ranked out, and then just pick their winners based off of that, you've kind of already done this if you've done that in past years to determine this. Now, Andy, before we reveal what rides are in this year's brackets, there's one more reason we've done this. We've done this because in the first 8 years of the Thrilling 32, the brackets were all randomly generated. We just assigned all of them in alphabetical order, random numbers, and put it into a random number generator. And the matchups were what the matchups were. Never once in the 8-year history of the Thrilling 32 have we specifically manipulated a matchup or a region to get a particular matchup. That is no longer the case.
No more, Danny Miller. No more.
That's the other part of this. We have particularly, you and me together, have formed these groups based on a couple of things. One, rides that might have something in common. You'll see the trend very quickly as we get into it. Maybe rides that are located near each other. Maybe rides that are from the same manufacturer. Maybe rides that have a similar theme or a similar color or something like that. But Andy, the other part of this is also, we're trying to make this difficult, and we're trying to spread out the difficulty through the different rounds. I think there's some regions here tonight where we'll see where the first round of picking the top 4 out of the 8 is the most difficult part. I think there's a couple regions where ranking them is going to be most difficult. And there might be a few regions where the final 4 participant might be fairly obvious, but everything underneath that, the whole ranking of the 3 rides underneath it, is going to be the challenging part in selecting the other 3 rides that move forward. So that's where this gets tricky, right? Because if you were always really good at picking the final 4 and the finalists and then the champion, typically you did very well. And a lot of times that's how you would win. You could afford to get some wrong in those earlier rounds. But with this format, it really puts the emphasis on those earlier rounds because, let's face it, more and more people every year are getting the champions right because people are understanding the trends of rides that are moving up, moving down. We've had less variation the last couple of years.
Especially when you have such dominant champions like Vengeance and Voyage.
Well, right. So, we kind of said before last year, we said, if Voyage and Vengeance both win for a second year, maybe we should change up the format next year, because if they win again, everybody's going to have them right. Again, not saying that they're going to win again this year. They certainly may not. But even if they do, now the emphasis is on those first two rounds. So the importance is back on those first two rounds, like it was when this contest first started. Because when this contest first started, we had people winning who didn't have either champion right. So, and that's no longer the case.
A woman to that, Danny, a woman. So yeah. So let's get into the rounds.
All right. Are you ready? Shall we start with the wood coasters?
Let's start. Well, we always do with the boring section.
Well, yeah, that's right. So here we go. The first group of the thrilling 32 Coaster Rumble in the wood bracket this year. Andy, it's the GCI group. We've got 8 coasters, originally manufactured all by Great Coasters International. We've got Gold Striker from California's Great America. We've got Joris and the Draak from Efteling in the Netherlands. Mystic Timbers from Kings Island in Ohio. Prowler from Worlds of Fun in Kansas City, Missouri. Renegade from Valley Fair in Shakopee, Minnesota. Thunderhead from Dollywood in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. Troy from Toverland, also in the Netherlands. And Wodan Timber Coaster from Europa Park in Reuss, Germany. And Andy, putting all the GCIs in a group here, this is bold, because a lot of these rides have done very, very well, especially in recent years.
Well, in your task here specifically, you have to pick the 4 best rides out of this group. So, you have 8 rides all together. You got to pick the best 4. And like you said, a lot of the GCIs have traditionally done pretty well. The question is, like, we've never had an all GCI Final Four before, so that's not the issue. So you got to think of, and we always suggest, go back to the previous year's rankings. Don't stay religious to that, but you have to look at those previous year rankings, look at the trends, and see where things have been going. One would assume that no new wood coasters opened up this year, correct, Danny? Or no, one did. Texas Stingray. Was the only new wood coaster. Texas Stingray was a GCI. I
noticed GCI Texas Stingray not in this group. Now it might appear in one of the later groups. Maybe there were more than 8 GCI coasters, but it's not in the GCI group. Now, Andy, I'm gonna throw something out here. We always talk every year about the rides that are traditionally, top 3, 4, top 5 or so that a lot of people pencil into their Final Four. There's not one of those in this group right off the bat. We don't have a Voyage or a Lightning Rod or, a ride like that that's always been in the Final Four. So, this might be moving down the road. This is going to be a more difficult one to actually maybe find your Final Four ride. But let me read something off to you from last year's rankings. Gold Striker, number 8. Troy, number 10. Mystic Timbers, number 12. Wodan Timber Coaster, number 13. Renegade, number 14. They're all right there. They're all bunched together. So selecting the 4 is going to be a challenge enough, and then ranking them.
I want people to be clear. There is a Final Four ride in this group.
There is.
So on every single slide, on every single page here, there is a Final Four ride. You got to find it. And then you got to find the 3 other ones that are going to be the highest.
And based off of the ranking that I just rattled off from last year, it sounds like there's at least 5 or 6 candidates. So, boy, I don't envy the participants in this one, because if we told everybody to work backwards, and if you try and work backwards and find your Final Four ride in this region here, good luck finding it, because there's at least 5 or 6 that have been, that could be right there just based on a few rides shuffling. And I don't think you and I did not go to a whole lot of parks this year, but a few things to consider. There are a lot of folks in Europe who vote and also went to a lot of parks while they were open last year. There's a lot of people who went to Kings Island because Orion opened this year. So a lot of people might have ridden a ride like Mystic Timbers for the first time. Worlds of Fun did open this year. Dollywood was open for pretty much the whole year. So I don't think it's safe to assume that the rankings are going to be the same as last year just because a lot of new rides didn't open. There's a lot of people who went to parks this year. Actually, in our general awards category, Andy, 95% of our voters went to theme parks after April 1st, 2020. So pretty much everybody who voted in these awards this year went to theme parks this year.
Okay, so that's interesting to know. So you there could be some movement here in the overall rankings. There could definitely be movement. So like I said, you have to find the final four ride, and then you have to rank all four of those top rides here. So you rank them 1, 2, 3, 4, and you'll get points based on your ranking. So it's either right or wrong, correct? It's either the second best ride or it's not the second best ride in that group, correct, Danny?
Right.
Half points.
Right. We're not doing half points because, I only messed up one and that threw the whole list off. No, we're not doing that.
Do better. Do better next time.
Right. That's right. So, there and no protesting. We will not accept protests either.
No protests.
So no storming the Silo House here in Green, New York. So at any rate, so that's your GCI group there. So good luck.
So let's move on to the next group.
Yeah, so our next group is pun intended, the Gravity Group. Andy, now it's not 8 Gravity Group rides. There are a couple of them in here, but these are all rides that have some connection to either the Gravity Group or the previous company, Custom Coasters International here. So we've got Boulder Dash from Lake Compounce in Connecticut. We've got Ghost Rider from Knott's Berry Farm, which was originally a CCI coaster. Now it's sort of like a GCI CCI crossover here, but it comes up in this group. We've got Andy. We've got all 3 Holiday World coasters in this group. We've got the Legend, we've got the Raven, and then we've got the Voyage pictured on the other side here. And we've got Ravine Flyer 2 from Waldameer in Erie, Pennsylvania. We've got Shivering Timbers from Michigan's Adventure, and we've got Tremors from Silverwood in Athol, Idaho. And just a disclaimer here. These rides are in alphabetical order, starting at the top left, moving down to the bottom left, and then top right down the bottom right. They're not in any particular predetermined order as far as ranking or park or anything. They are in alphabetical order on these slides by ride name. Not including the word the. But there we go. So, Andy, this might be a first that we have all 3 Holiday World coasters in the same region. I'd have to check the history on that. Boy, there's a lot of good rides in here. And unlike the last region, there's a clear Final Four winner here. Well, but there's also 2 former champions.
Well, true. Wait, Boulder Dash.
Right, many years ago.
Oh yeah, you said 2 former champions, Voyage, and you're counting Voyage in that. Right?
Oh well, yes. I mean, Voyage is the defending champion, but also a former champion. So yes, but I mean, history tells you that Voyage is the Final Four coaster out of this group. But then after that, I think it gets really muddy because all of these rides have historically done very well. And you and I like talking about Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider has slowly been climbing its way back up since the refurbishment a couple years ago. It was back up to number 17 last year. Ghost Rider is one of those that I tend to think is going to continue climbing. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on this group?
Well, this is like one of my groups that is like, oh, Boulder Dash. It's nice not to have to talk about these individual matchups anymore. But like you said, love Ghost Rider. Shivering Timbers is another underrated, I think, wood coaster in the world.
I agree.
The Legend and Raven have always been, if you rank the old Legend, not the new Legend, Ravine Flyers, kind of like, Voyage Light a little bit. So
you call it the poor man's Voyage.
The poor man's Voyage. So you have a lot of rides in here, but once again, you have to pick the top 4. And I don't think that's an easy task here. Looking at this list, I would say maybe it's going to come down to 5 in my mind. There are 5 clear rides that have a chance to be picked into that group of 4. You just have to figure out what that 4th versus 5th ride is. And that's Danny, I'll tell you what, looking at them as a group like this, I think is more disorientating a little bit. That when you look at matchup 1 versus 1, it's like, okay, this one's the clear winner. But when you group them together, guys, use your history books, use the old rankings.
Right.
You're going to start outthinking yourself real quick here if you start looking at them in groups.
Well, the old process of getting from 8 to 4 is certainly not equivalent to the new process of getting 8 to 4. Because if you just think about it, based on the ones that are next to each other, if you were to do Boulder Dash and Ghost Rider, okay, you can probably pick that one based on the history. Legend Raven, that one's probably pretty close, but you can probably pick it. Shivering Timbers Ravine Flyer, that one would be pretty close. Voyage Tremors, Voyage probably moves. I would say 3 out of the 4, if you were to do the head-to-head style matchup, would be pretty easy here. But then throw them all into the pot together.
And it's a mishmash here of fun. So like we said, use the old rankings. Don't stay religious to it, because things are going to change. I guarantee you, Danny, are the rankings exactly the same as last year?
No, I can tell you for a fact they are not.
So they are not exactly the same.
No. I mean, it's, and Andy, not to bring this up, but to bring this up, one Rob Dole stuck to last year's rankings religiously and lost the contest because he decided to use the previous year's rankings over his better judgment in the Maverick versus Twisted Colossus matchup. Perhaps a Tournament of Terrible nomination, losing the Thrilling 32 because you didn't pick your favorite ride to win. He would have won the contest. So that just goes to show you that even, you got to think about all of these, and that, history can be a good teacher. History can repeat itself. But, you should also be learning from history. You also should be looking at the trends. So sticking to the previous year's rankings religiously, not a good idea. Maybe looking at trends over the last couple of years might be a better choice too, if you're stuck between a couple of rides.
So let's move on to the third grouping here.
Yeah, so this is where we started to have a little bit more leeway as we started to group. Those two groups form themselves very, very nicely here. But the third group is what I'm calling the Inferno group, and these are all rides that generally have something that has to do with explosives or fire or flames in their logo or theme here, which you'll see. So we've got Boardwalk Bullet from Kima Boardwalk in Kima, Texas. We've got Colossus from Heide Park in Germany. We've got Hades 360 from Mount Olympus in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin. We've got Lightning Rod from Dollywood and Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. We've got Mind Blower in the bracket this year from Fun Spot Kissimmee down there in Florida. We've got the Phoenix from Knoebels Amusement Resort in Elysburg, Pennsylvania. We've got Rampage from Alabama Splash Adventure in Bessemer, Alabama. And finally, we've got Wildfire, the big RMC coaster from Kolmarden Wildlife Park over in Sweden. And Andy, this is I venture to say this might be the toughest of the 3 groups that we've unveiled so far. I think this one here is where you're really going to struggle, not only with picking that Final 4 ride, perhaps, but also the rankings beneath it.
There's like 2 or 3 different Final 4 rides that could come out of here quite easily. And then, but that also makes picking the 4 maybe a little bit easier too. That if you know that there's 2 or 3 that could be in the Final 4, well, you just need to pick one more then, so theoretically that could help you out a little bit. But then picking which one's going to be ultimately in the Final 4, is a little bit difficult here. You have your favorites like Lightning Rod that has won in the past. You have upstarts like Wildfire, that people still say should be maybe winning. You have things like Phoenix in here, and Rampage that both have really solid showings all the time. You have Colossus, which just got a whole refurb done.
It's been moving back up.
And who knows what's going to happen there. And then you have, your middle of the line coasters like Mind Blower, Boardwalk Bullet, and Hades. That where are they going to, like, they're obviously not going to be Final Four choices, but where ultimately are they going to fall on this list? Is Hades going to be higher than Rampage? Is Hades going to be higher than Colossus? Is Boardwalk Bullet, which is a ride that's been talked about, that everyone raves about all the time, but is Boardwalk Bullet going to, make a jump here depending on the voters and maybe knock off a Phoenix or a Colossus or a Rampage? I don't know. You have to, you can have your throwaway rides right away and say, okay, this ride ain't going to make it, this ride ain't going to make it, and now I'm looking at 6. Narrow your fields down a little bit, try and make your selection process a little bit easier on yourself and be like, hey, this ride has never done well. Yeah, it's always in the Thrilling 32, but it's number 32. So get rid of it. Get it off the list.
That's right. And, I will say this, because you mentioned Hades 360. Hades 360 may be the ride that has surprised the most people over the last couple of years, because Hades 360 is one of those rides that's actually won a couple of the head-to-head matchups in the traditional format we've used the last couple of years. I think last year it might have met Lightning Rod in the first round, and maybe that was 2 years ago. But the previous few years, Hades 360 has actually won a couple of matchups here. Hades 360, I would say, is maybe the ride in the entire Thrilling 32, wood or steel, that might be the ride that's flown under the radar the most often in getting a little further than people think. So Hades 360, I think is one that people tend to write off because of where it's at, and it's not generally talked about because of the park it's at. But Hades 360 is not one to sleep on at all, because people have done that in the past and they've paid dearly for it.
So let's move on to our final grouping of wood coasters here.
That's right. And I've called this group the Misfit group, because it's pretty much everybody else that hasn't really fit nicely into it. And we've got some oddballs because these rides didn't really particularly fit into another group. And we've got a lot of...
I've got a number of questions for you.
Andy, you don't like this group at all, and I know why. Because there's 4 coasters outside of the United States. You've got the Beast.
What the hell is the Beast still doing in the top 32? Who is still voting for the Beast?
So we've got Balder from Liseberg in Sweden. We've got the Beast from Kings Island in Ohio. We've got the Coaster from P&E Playland in Vancouver, Canada. We've got Q Cullen from Tato Park just outside of Dublin, Ireland. We've got El Toro from Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey. Finally, a coaster that people have actually seen towards the top of the rankings over the years here. We've got Goliath from Six Flags Great America in Gurnee, Illinois. We've got Outlaw Run from Silver Dollar City in Branson, Missouri. And finally, Andy, a first-time ride in the Thrilling 32, the first ever traditional scenic railway style wood coaster entered here. The Rutschebanen from Tivoli Gardens in Denmark.
What the hell is a Rutschebanen?
And Andy, you'll notice I said that in Danish tongue, since this is a ride in Denmark. I believe the Germans would call it Rutschebanen. But Andy, much like many years ago, what the hell is Liseberg Banen? What the hell is Rutschebanen? I think I have an answer for you. So really quickly, for the folks who may not be familiar at all with this ride, a lot of people that we've had quite a few European voters over the. If you look back at last year's top 50, I actually have it up here. Was it last year or the year before? The year before, this ride actually was in the top 50. This has been a ride that's been slowly getting votes over the years as people make their Europe trips or we get more European voters. This is one of the traditional scenic railway type wooden coasters, the side friction wooden coasters with the brake man that holds the brakes. And this is one that is very heavily themed. It's very much Matterhorn themed, actually. And I read some reviews, watched some videos. Supposedly this has one of it has some of the most airtime of any of the traditional scenic railways over in Europe. Some good lateral forces. They let their brakemen sort of lay off the brakes a little bit. Some of the scenic railways over there in Europe, they ride the brakes pretty heavy before the drops. But this one, they sort of let it run wide open. And this is one that is highly regarded, at least among the more of the classic coasters here. Now we'll see if it has any legs to get through the first round here. But this is one that has slowly been getting some traction here. I can't speak to it. I haven't ridden it.
Holy cow! I tell you what, this not even the names. This. What the hell? This is crazy. You have El Toro and Outlaw Run. Meaning,
well, that's the thing, right? Because amongst all this stuff that a lot of people who watch the show have never ridden, I mean, never mind Balder, Coaster, Q Cullen, and Rutschebanen, right? They've probably ridden these other four, but then when you look at those other four, you've got El Toro and Outlaw Run there.
It's insanity. El Toro has never won the Thrilling 32. Is that correct? Much to the dismay of one Jeff Goodman, correct?
Thank God. No.
Yeah. So El Toro has never won, and here you have it in the same category as Outlaw Run. Things like Goliath have always done well. Things like Coaster have always done well. Balder,
Coaster's been in the top 10 the last 2 years.
Oh my God. This is one, picking the four might be somewhat easy on this one. It's picking the winner out of this one. You're going to sit there and, bust your balls about.
Well, yeah. And again, picking the four might be kind of easy. Picking the one, a little challenge, but I mean, if you ranking them, I don't know that that's a much easier task.
Oh man, this is already hard. And this is wood coasters, Danny. Wood coasters is usually the cakewalk of this.
Let me tell you this, the steel coasters are harder. Let me tell you that much. The wood coasters should be easy compared to this. But is the Misfit group an appropriate name for this? Because we've got shit all over the map here. Literally.
Absolutely. All over. So,
Sweden, Canada, Ireland, Denmark, New Jersey, and then Missouri just for a little bit extra there.
Oh my God. Okay, Danny, we got if this is already what the wood coasters look like, I can't even imagine what the steel coasters are going to look like. Are we ready to move? Are we ready to move on to the main event here?
Do you have any final thoughts on the wood before we get over to the steel?
Good luck.
I think that's about it. Good luck to you. And certainly, as always, if you guys have questions while you're filling out the brackets, definitely let us know on your way there. But we're not going to be helping you. Don't be that guy who Facebook messages me like, hey, I have a question about the Thrilling 32. Which one won the Misfit group? Nope, you're not getting that answer out of us, so don't even try it. Andy's a teacher. He knows much better than that. Yeah. So, Mr. Abarchek, what's the answer to number 12? Go fuck yourself.
1812 is always the answer.
That's right. So are we ready for the steel coasters?
Well, hopefully this gets easier. That's all I got to say.
Because
I don't know if it can get much harder than that.
Well, stay tuned because, Andy, we're kicking off the steel coasters with a group of 8 Intimates. Here we go, Andy. Here's the Intimate group to kick off the Thrilling 32 Coaster Rumble Steel Bracket. We've got Expedition G-Force from...
Are you kidding me right now?
Andy, we've got Expedition G-Force from Holiday Park in Germany. We've got Goliath from Walibi Holland in the Netherlands. We've got Intimidator 305 from King's Dominion in Virginia. We've got Maverick from Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. We've got Millennium Force from Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. We've got Skyrush from Hershey Park in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Superman the Ride from Six Flags New England and Agawam, Massachusetts. And we've got Terran from Phantasialand in Brühl, Germany. Andy, we've got 3 former champions.
3 former champions.
We've got 5 rides that have previously been in the final 4. G-Force, Intimidator 305, Maverick, Terran, and Superman. And when you consider Skyrush and Millennium Force, we've got 7 out of 8 rides that have all been in the top 8 or better at some point over the history of this poll.
Oh, well.
Honestly, if you threw out Goliath at Walibi Holland, which last year did very well, I'm scrolling very quickly to get down to the steel rankings from last year. But the Goliath from Walibi Holland was number 18 last year. So if you take that one out of there, though, if you put one other ride in there, this could easily be a top 8 list.
yeah, it really could. If you, oh my God, I
never mind picking one. So reminder, only one of these rides is going to the final 4.
Yeah. That's outstanding. That is outstanding. I'm looking at this list here, and I don't even know where you start.
Andy, last year, Expedition G-Force and Terran was a head-to-head matchup in the Super Whirlpool region, and the winner went to the final 4.
Holy no! I don't even know. This is, so once again, you got to pick the top 4. So the top 4 out of this group is not is not easy to do. You got Maverick that has been a perennial favorite. You've got I-305, former champion. You got Tyrone that has been moving up the list. You got Skyrush that might have underperformed a lot of years, but people it's in my top 5. So you have Millennium Force that's a favorite. You got Superman the Ride that idiots like to overrank every year. Man,
Andy, look at my face. And I made the bracket.
I don't even know. Okay, we got to move on. I can't look at that anymore.
So just a reminder, you're trying to pick the top 4 out of that group of 8, and then
you're not picking the top 8 out of that group, because
you're going to take the top 4 out of that group, whatever the hell you think the top 4 out of that group is, and then you're going to try and rank them 1 through 4. Your number 1 is going to be your final 4 coaster, and at that point, you're probably going to be sitting in a corner and crying. So we'll just move on from there.
Yeah.
All right. So shall we move on, Andy? I think the people have suffered enough with that group.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's not getting any better. We're going to move on to the mega group. We've got a bunch of mega coasters here. We've got 7 B&Ms, and then we've got one sort of outcast from Kennywood there. We've got Behemoth from Canada's Wonderland in Vaughan, Ontario. We've got Fury 325 from Carowinds in Charlotte, North Carolina. We've got Goliath from Six Flags Over Georgia, just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. We've got Leviathan from Canada's Wonderland. So both Canada's Wonderland B&M coasters, well, not counting Yukon Striker, the 2 mega coasters in here. We've got Mako from SeaWorld Orlando in Orlando, Florida. We've got Orion from Kings Island making it into the thrilling 32 here. So a noticeable lack of Candemonium here. So Andy, don't you think it wouldn't have made sense for Candemonium to be in this group if it were in the thrilling 32?
I would venture to guess that Candemonium did not make the top 32 here.
That may be the case here. But Orion is in here. We've got Phantom's Revenge from Kennywood in West Mifflin, Pennsylvania, the only non-B&M coaster in this group. And finally, we've got Silver Star from Europa Park in Rust, Germany. Silver Star continuing to stay in the thrilling 32. Diamondback has dropped out the last couple of years. Nitro, Apollo's Chariot, Goliath at La Ronde, all of those B&M hypercoasters have dropped out of the thrilling 32 over the last several years. But rides like Mako, Goliath, Behemoth, Silver Star, those are the traditional hypercoasters that are the 200 to 300 foot range. Those 4 seem to stay in here regardless of what the others do.
Well, it's interesting that those have become the 4 Like Mako especially has become like the darling of the hypers. Even though I don't think it's as good as some of the other ones, but people love it. Behemoth has always been a perennial favorite. Orion even, Orion, surprising. See, the one thing I don't know about Candemonium and Orion is how many riders they actually got this year. I would assume quite a bit.
Well, I'll tell you this. Plenty. I don't know what the percentage is. I didn't count the numbers, but plenty of people who voted rode both of these rides this year. So Candemonium, I guess I can bury the hatchet right now and tell you Candemonium is not in the Thrilling 32. This would have been the group for it to be in. So Candemonium will not be in the Thrilling 32 this year. And I can confidently say it's not because it didn't have enough riders. Plenty of people rode it. Plenty of people who have been on a lot of rides, myself included, rode it this year. So for whatever reason, Candemonium did not do very well this year. So the question is, how well did Orion do? Because we know a lot of people went to ride it. It was really between Orion and Candemonium. They were really the only two big rides opening this year, at least in the States here. We have a very heavy contingent of people who live in the Kings Island, Cedar Point, Great America area. We know the patrons, a lot of them got to go ride Orion and Candemonium this year because we've talked to them about it. So, what are your thoughts on Candemonium not being in the Thrilling 32 and Orion being in the Thrilling 32? Does that sort of align with what you've heard about those two rides?
Not from you, because you kind of said that you like Candemonium better, and everyone.
I think it's almost a coin flip. I mean,
I think that's been the major words that people who have ridden both of them has said. They're pretty close together.
Yeah, I mean, Candemonium, I think, because it's so local to me and I finally have a B&M hyper in my backyard. I mean, Candemonium's the ride that I can sit on and marathon. Orion is certainly more intense. I would say it's maybe a little bit more consistent. I mean, I've ridden Candemonium in July. I've ridden it in August. I've ridden it on a cold October.
If you're going to build a second hyper coaster at a park, you should make it better, right? And that's Orion. So.
Well, and that point goes back to Hershey Park, where we said that the construction of Candemonium so close after Skyrush opened almost admits that Skyrush isn't quite what they were looking for.
Yeah.
Yet Skyrush is here in the Thrilling 32 and Candemonium is not. So is that telling you that people went to ride Candemonium and they still like Skyrush better? I mean, that's what the brackets are telling us.
That's exactly what the brackets are telling us. And Danny, I don't know. Like, I've always thought Skyrush is one of those superior rides that has traditionally been underranked, especially in this poll. And I've always
I'm partially to blame for that. Skyrush had fallen out of my favor for a number of years. But I will say, I rediscovered a great appreciation for Skyrush this year. Having spent a lot of time at Hershey Park when the park was not busy and being able to ride Skyrush many, many times this summer, I have formed a new appreciation for Skyrush. I moved it up quite a bit in my own rankings. I still like Candemonium better, but clearly that is not an opinion that is shared by the voting majority.
Yeah. So here's the issue here right now with this selection. You have to figure out that the brackets are now, or the rankings are now automatically different. Orion is officially here. You got to figure out where Orion's going to end up. And we know that first year rides in this poll have always done pretty well. Fury won in year one. Vengeance won in year one. I don't think you have a champion here. Let's not get silly, but you got to figure out, is Orion amongst the top four here? You've got a pretty stacked set of rides, at the top. And Orion, you got to figure that out. You got to figure out, will Orion be in the top four, or will it not live up? And you said already that it has enough riders, so its position is going to be determined based on a sample size that every other new ride has had as well. Correct?
Yeah, I mean it's got a similar ridership to some of these other rides here in this group, so it's gonna be real interesting to see where these rides end up, and also how the people pick here, because you've got Phantom's Revenge, which is sort of the oddball in this group, but you've got 4 hypers, and then you've got the 3 gigas. So it'll be interesting because, Fury has the last couple years sort of separated itself from Leviathan, but there's been a lot of comparisons between Leviathan and Orion, both before it opened and after people have ridden it. So it'll be interesting to see where Orion comes in compared to Leviathan, compared to Fury. We've had some people that think Orion is very, very good and almost as good as Fury. So, it'll be interesting to see where things fall and how people sort of gauge that, because Orion's really the only new ride we're talking about this year, with no Candemonium, no Texas Stingray, nothing else really opening. This is really the 2020 ride. This is really the only game in town as far as 2020 rides go.
That's for sure. So let's move on. We got 2 groups left. Let's move on to our second to last group.
And, Andy, the wood coaster bracket was difficult. That mega coaster group, that's a tough group. That intimate group, good luck there. Well, Andy, this might be the most devious group of all, because it's the Rocky Mountain Coasters group, the Rocky Mountain Construction group. 8 RMCs in this group. Iron Rattler from Six Flags Fiesta Texas, Steel Vengeance, the defending champion from Cedar Point, Twisted Colossus from Six Flags Magic Mountain, Twisted Cyclone from Six Flags Over Georgia in the Thrilling 32, Twisted Timbers from King's Dominion in Doswell, Virginia, Untamed from Walibi Holland over in the Netherlands, last year's runner-up, Wicked Cyclone from Six Flags New England, and Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Coaster from Six Flags Fiesta Texas, making it in to the Thrilling 32 again this year. It was in last year as well. So no Joker from Discovery Kingdom, which has been in here in the past. No Storm Chaser, thank God, from Kentucky Kingdom. No new Texas Giant this year. All those rides outside the Thrilling 32 this year. But what do you think about the RMC group? Because, Andy, we've got last year's number 1 and number 2 in the same group. Only one of them gets to go to the Final Four.
Well, and I'll be honest with you, picking the 4 here, I think might, like right now, just looking at this, I have it narrowed down to 5. Okay. And that number 4 pick for me is right on that border. I'm not sure which way it's going to go. There's 2 options for me. So picking the 4 in this group is not as difficult as some of the other groups we've seen already.
I think you can pencil in 2 and you can easily wipe out 2. And then you've got to pick 2 out of a group of 4 that are left.
Exactly. And well, and not even, I can wipe out 3 quite easily here. There's
maybe you can.
Well, anyone with a brain can. So let's put it that way too. So
I don't think, see, the problem is I don't think we're talking about the same ride.
I don't know if we are.
Because I'm pretty sure you're wiping out Wicked Cyclone, whereas I'd be wiping out Twisted Colossus.
Well, we are not talking about the same ride. So here's,
I like Wicked Cyclone. You don't.
No, there's no chance in hell Wicked Cyclone's going to win. So so picking the 4, but then once you get into the ranking part of this one, that's where it gets a little dicey. I don't think Steel Vengeance is losing anytime soon. Although Untamed did come very, very close last year. I just don't think it's got it.
The second closest finish in Thrilling 32 history.
Well, that with that and a dime, you got 2 nickels. So I don't even know what that means. So I think picking
that math doesn't even work out.
No, it doesn't. So I don't know what people are going to do here, but there's a lot of from your 5 there that I think everyone can come up with 5 maybe confidently. The 4 then should be easier to pick if you're trying to eliminate stuff. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But this grouping I don't think is as difficult as some of the other ball busters that you put on here.
Yeah, and maybe I think this one, if you took, I guess maybe from top to bottom, if you were forming a park with these groups, I think this might be the best park, but I don't know that it's the most difficult to pick. I don't know. The Intamin group would certainly have something to say about that as well. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a challenge. And I think, obviously, the big thing is going to come down to, I think based off of last year, everybody's going to have Steel Vengeance and Untamed as part of the 4 from the first round. But I think a lot of people are going to be having some tough decisions to make as far as the rankings go. And because remember, whichever one you rank number 1 is your final 4 ride. Only one of these is going on to the final 4. And there's certainly at least a couple contenders here. But we'll see how it goes here. Andy, shall we reveal
the
last group? And much like the Wood Coasters, where we had sort of a group of misfits, there is somewhat of a theme here, but I'm calling it the Terra group, because most of these seem to have some terrain elements, or at least the terrain factors into these rides, but it's really sort of a misfit group of rides here.
Something out there. I think Montu belonged in the B&M group.
Well, maybe it did, but you've also got Black Mamba and Nemesis here. So we got Black Mamba from Phantasialand in Brühl, Germany. We've got Cannibal from Lagoon out there in Farmington, Utah. Again, Cannibal in the Thrilling 32. Cannibal just always seems to kind of hang around.
No Kumba, though!
No Kumba. Well, we'll get to that in a minute. Speaking of Busch Gardens Tampa, we've got Montu from Busch Gardens Tampa. We've got Nemesis from Alton Towers in England here in this group. Also from Alton Towers, we've got the Smiler from Alton Towers, the inversion record holder. We've got the Ultimate from Lightwater Valley, another British coaster in here. And then we finish up with 2 coasters stateside. We've got Time Traveler from Silver Dollar City, making its way back into the Thrilling 32. I don't believe Time Traveler was in the Thrilling 32 last year. It was its debut year, and now it's made its way back into the bracket. And then finally, Andy, we've got X2 from Six Flags Magic Mountain in this group here. Definitely sort of a hodgepodge of rides in this group here, and kind of similar to that GCI group that we let off with. I think it's appropriate that we sort of end with this group, because you're probably initially scratching your head at which ride is your final 4 ride out of this group. I mean, we had Vengeance and Untamed in the last group, number 1 and 2, and then you look at this group and say, like, well, boy, I don't know if any of those rides are on that caliber.
So I got a question for you. Now in the past, the final 4 has not always been the top 4 rides.
It's almost, we've had years where it's worked out that way, but more often than not, the final 4 is definitely not the top 4. Most of the time, the championship has been number 1 versus number 2. But like we talked about at the top of the show, that's never been something we've really I think the first year or two we sort of forced it to happen. But this year we made these groups based off of what we thought were the most interesting groups to talk about. So the final 4 is not necessarily the top 4, and the final 2 is not necessarily the top 2. It might be, it might not be. It's not. Nothing's been forced to happen somewhere down the road. We've made these groups the way that we wanted to make these groups, and the chips will fall where they shall fall.
Well, that makes it a lot more difficult.
So what are your thoughts on this group here? Because okay, I gotta say this.
So you gotta rank all 8 here. Like that's what you gotta do. You gotta pick. Well, you don't have to rank all 8. You gotta pick the top 4 and then just rank them and see what happens.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think in some of these other groups, like the RMC group, I think, you talked about you could probably wipe out 1 or 2 right away. I don't know that you can do that with this group, because there's not a whole lot that really sticks out as like clear cut here. Because if you look over the history of the poll, a couple of these rides have kind of been all over the map. I mean, X2 has been sort of all over the map. It's done better recently. Nemesis has been a top 5 or 6 ride, but more recently it's been in like the teens. Smiler has kind of been working its way up. Montu's kind of been all over the map. Black Mamba's kind of been up and down. The Ultimate's been in here the last couple years. I got to mention a ride that you mentioned that's not here is Kumba. Kumba on the final day of voting was in the Thrilling 32 and got knocked out by the last 3 ballots that came in. So Kumba just out of the Thrilling 32. Kumba is a ride that I think needs to be in the Thrilling 32, by the way.
I don't understand how it's not. I honestly, I don't understand that at all. Not with some of these rides we got in here. It's far better than some of these rides that I see on these lists. But this one's especially difficult because you really have to see. It's really like ranking the best of the bunch. You know, it's not ranking the best roller coaster in the world. It's you're ranking the best of the bunch here. So out of this group, what is the best coaster in this group? When you look at it that way, it does not become any easier.
I was just going to say, I'm kind of wondering where you're going with this because I don't think that really does much for you.
No, it doesn't. Not at all.
Because, I mean, you know, if you think about it the way you thought about some of those other groups and said, yeah, there's 1 or 2 you can kind of cross off the list right away. I don't think there's any here you can cross right off the list because there's not a whole lot that obviously jumped to the top, and there's not a subgroup that separates itself really.
Well, and some of these rides have been, you know, middle of the pack rides, traditionally. Some of them have made some forays into getting higher scores. So it's you have some clear really good rides, but the question is what 4 are going to be the best, and then what 4 and how you're going to rank them then. So this one's difficult from a different perspective, as opposed to, hey, there's a slew of great rides here. Not saying these aren't great rides, but traditionally in the Thrilling 32, we don't have winners here.
Yeah, I mean, these aren't the traditional top 5, top 10 rides here, and this is sort of
Who knows? Because like Nemesis and X2, we've always talked about them being in the final 4, and
Nemesis and X2 have both been in the final 4 in recent years.
So it's like you have rides that have been on that cusp, and like a good Royal Rumble, anyone can win. 30 men enter, 1 exit. So anyone can win, although here it's based on your rankings. So
well, and if not for running into Steel Vengeance in the Elite 8, X2 might have been a Final 4 ride last year.
Yeah.
Exactly. So certainly, X2 has the potential. Nemesis has been there before, has the potential, but Smiler has been outranking Nemesis the last couple of years. So I don't know. This one's certainly difficult. So I think to wrap up here, there's 1 or 2 things that I just want to point out here. Our thoughts about these groups certainly are well known at this point. And we've talked about the potential challenges in each of these regions at great lengths at this point. But a few things that I think are interesting. And I don't know if it's because of COVID or, what the deal is, but we had a slight drop off in European votes this year. We still had a lot of people who live stateside who have been over there, but significant drops in rankings for a couple of rides. Shambhala, which was in the Thrilling 32 last year, not in this year. Helix has done very, very well the last couple of years, not in the Thrilling 32 at all this year, actually dropped out. And I don't know if it's because I don't know what that is, because we had people who have ridden Helix. So I'm wondering if it's maybe a few less European voters who rank it higher, and we just have people over here who just think it's okay. We saw Blue Fire drop out for that same reason, where a lot of people have been on more rides who live stateside rode Blue Fire and said, it's good, but it's not a top 10 ride. So I wonder if Helix may be suffering that same sort of fate here. We've talked about rides like Nitro, Apollo's Chariot, Diamondback, Intimidator, those B&M hypers not being in anymore. The 1 year wonder of Flug der Dämonen dropping out. Again, maybe the same thing at effect. There's still a great iSpeed, same thing. So we had European rides drop out this year in favor of some rides in the States. And I don't know if that's COVID, if people have just ridden more rides over here. I don't know. What are your thoughts on some of that?
Well, our voters change every year. So
they do.
It's not like our voters have stayed stagnant. It's the same people voting over and over. Other polls, that's exactly what it is. It's the same voters every single year. You get the same results every year for the most part. With a few moves. Our voters, our turnover in voters that we have a stable core, and then we have a number of flexible voters that change every year, which leads to more interesting stuff happening. We get different opinions change, and obviously the rankings change. So if you go back and look at the rankings, you see some patterns there, but you see very different ride lists of what's in it every year. What are the top 32? You see very different. You see a lot of moves, jumps up, jumps down, and all that great stuff. And not having European voters, I don't know if that's going to affect it all that much, because so many of you jabronis have gone over to Europe and ridden stuff. So, European voters, traditionally have ridden a lot of European stuff, but if they haven't been to America, it's hard to get that crossover then, to get that mixed opinion. And I sometimes think that, sometimes they come in and they don't really affect the poll as much because they haven't been on as many rides, or they haven't been to America to ride some of the great stuff like Maverick and Steel Vengeance and all that.
Right.
So I don't know if not having European voters is going to change a whole lot. And I know you were talking to me before, we got a whole slew of voters, a sizable group this year that have been all over the place. Asia, Europe, America, Canada, wherever. So they've been all over the place. So we have, a new mix again. And that's what's cool about it, is you have those changing numbers, and people are like, they always complain about, the golden tickets. Well, they never change. Well, they never change the voters. That's why the awards never change. Right. That's the problem. So with us, we have a stable core, we have a rotating core, and that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I mean, they're like I said towards the beginning of the show, one of the questions on the Ride War Choice Awards this year was, did you go to an amusement or theme park after April 1st, 2020? And over 95% of the voters said yes. So people rode rides this year. People went to parks. Now, we don't know how many. People like me, I answered yes. I went to Kings Island and Hershey Park. I rode the 2 new rides, and I went to Hershey Park a bunch of times, rode Skyrish a bunch of times. I didn't go all over. And complete stark contrast to that, folks like our friend Alex Baker over in the UK. He went on a big 9 or 10 day road trip and hit a bunch of new parks over in different parts of Europe. He went to some parks that he had already been to, some new parks. He probably doubled his credit count. And some of our patrons, we know a couple of them spent 6,500 miles in a vehicle together, going to 20 some theme parks, riding a bunch of new rides, added 150 coasters to their count. There's people who did that kind of stuff this year. So, it would be an egregious error if you were to assume that the rankings were not going to change from last year to this year, in some regard, just because of COVID, because as we've already seen, just by what rides are in and what rides are not in this year's Thrilling 32, that is certainly not the case.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm excited to see what happens ultimately. We didn't talk a lot of matchups here. We'll get to talk about matchups later on when we get to other shows, when we get to the Final Four, we get to championship, get to talk about some rankings. So it also allows us to talk about different stuff that I felt like, I don't know if I can talk about the Beast versus Boardwalk Bullet for the 15th straight year. It's just, you get to the point and you keep talking about the same rides and the same matchups, that things always converge in very similar ways. So this breathes a whole new life into this, makes you think a little bit different, makes you look at the rankings a little bit different, makes you, reconsider maybe how rides are ranked and where they're going to be ranked ultimately. So good luck to everyone. Oh, yes. Danny, what is the prize this year for winning?
Yeah, so we've got some housekeeping to do here. So full disclosure here, and also, since we haven't had a chance to do it on air, we need to congratulate one Andy Rabarchek and his wife Margot, because part of the reason we're up against a time crunch here is you've got a young Padawan that you're now taking care of.
Yeah, I got a +1 now. So that's a little Robbie Raptor came out at the end of December, and he's kicking and screaming and having fun. So I don't have a whole lot of time on my hands, watching a 2-week-old. But you know what? We're gonna get it done. We're still gonna bring you the Thrilling 32 come hell or high water, where it's not gonna stop.
So I think here's what we're gonna try and do. We're recording this on January the 10th. Here's what we're gonna try and do. And if the dates are a little bit off, that's fine. We'll, join the Thrilling 32 Facebook group. Keep an eye on COASTER.net social media and all that stuff, because we will update you if this changes. We're going to try and drop this either Friday the 15th or Saturday the 16th. I think we're going to do the YouTube premiere. Hopefully, I think that worked well last year. And then I think we're going to give you, I'm using Zoom on my phone, so I can't look at my notes. But I think we're going to give you approximately 2 to 3 weeks to do the bracket thing. We will post an official deadline. The link below, you'll put the link in the description of the video to go to the Google form. It'll be live as this show drops. The deadline will be on the Google form yet. We haven't decided what it's going to be yet, but it will be there. So when you watch the show, at least click on the link and see what the deadline is there. I'm thinking it's probably going to be around January 31st, around the end of the month or so, maybe the week after. And then probably on Saturdays, we'll release new shows. Is that typically how we do it here?
Yeah.
So we'll try and do that. Round 1, we'll basically tell you in each of the 8 groups which 4 rides are moving on, maybe a little bit of discussion. The following week, we'll reveal the correct rankings, maybe a little bit of discussion. And then we'll do our final 4 show and then our championship show, as we always traditionally do, with the top 50 at the end of the championship show, and also the announcement of who wins the contest. We'll also have the general awards sprinkled in there as well, which is going to be a little bit different this year. And then finally, we'll finish up with the Hall of Fame at the end of all of it. So certainly stay tuned to the social media and the Thrilling 32 Ride Word Choice Award Facebook group for the official schedule, which obviously is subject to change, as things go on here. But we will do our best to stick to a pretty consistent schedule here. So click on that link down in the description to go to the Google form to fill out your brackets. Certainly contact me is probably your best bet if you have any questions.
I'm no help whatsoever.
If you have any questions directly related to the brackets, if I screwed anything up like I did last year, certainly let me know, because we avoided disaster last year by some people catching that very early on. So thank you for that. Boy, I think we've been at it tonight, haven't we?
We have. So, but Danny, what do they win?
That's right. Oh boy, I don't have one up here. I don't have so we've got the you have it. It's not on my fridge. Show the people what they're getting. That's right. So that's right. So if the folks who are patron members at the $15 or $25 a month level know that we've been doing these cool 3D printed magnets on the printer. It's over here.
And this will be a special one too, because it'll say champion at the bottom.
Yes, we'll put the word champion on the bottom specifically for you. The 3D printer that's here that you sometimes see and hear whirring in the background. We do those neat logos. So we got the Thrilling 32 sort of in plastic magnet logo 3D form. We'll put the word champion underneath there for you and send you one of those. And Andy, what do you think about perhaps letting people select a ride logo of their choosing?
Yeah, then we can do that too.
I got an example here. So these are not for sale. Okay, just full disclosure, you can't buy these anywhere. We're not selling these. These are prizes. So for example, one of the ones that we've worked on, and I don't think even the patrons have seen this one yet, but Andy, here's the Fury 325 one. Very neat. The base, it's a little hard to tell with the lighting, but the base is like a sparkly bluish teal. And then we've got the white and the fluorescent green and everything. So that one's pretty neat. That's one that's back here. This is actually an old one. It's not, we don't even do it in this color anymore, but the Maverick one in the gold, this was a prototype until we got some different colors. So those are a few of the sort of the oddball ones that are still sitting back here. But we've got, boy, I've done quite a few of them, but maybe we'll let you select a ride logo of your choice as well, since it is a prize. We're not selling those. You won't find those on our website, so don't go looking for them. What is it, the mystery box? The
mystery box, you could theoretically get one in the mystery box. So if you bought 2 COASTER.net t-shirts in the mystery box, you would get one of those ride logos too. So you could theoretically, you can't pick which one, but you will get one. So
right, and usually they're ones that I've done sort of as extra that are like sitting back here, and either you throw them in the box or whatever. So I think we'll do that. And I think what else is that? Is that what we're gonna do this year?
Yeah, that's what I think 2 magnets, pretty cool. That's right in line with what we've done. We usually give away t-shirts or something like that. So 2 magnets right in line to kind of promote what we're doing now. So man, good luck.
Well, whoever wins this year is certainly going to deserve it.
They're going to deserve it. And we'll also have some tiebreaker questions on there as well, just in case.
Yeah, I haven't decided what those are going to be. I've had some ideas, maybe people trying to predict what the point percentage of the 2 champions would be, because that does fluctuate from year to year. And since we go out to 2 decimal points, the likelihood of 2 people who are tied in points having both of them the same distance away, Price is Right, without going over, bid $1, whatever, very, very unlikely. So maybe we'll do something like that. Maybe we'll come up with something before this show drops. But those tiebreaker questions will be there as well. So Andy, any final thoughts on this year's thrilling 32 Coaster Rumble?
Well, hopefully you like it, because we're not changing it. So
well, yeah, that's what I was gonna say is, if tell us how you like this new format. If you like it, then we'll probably keep it, and if you don't like it, we might keep it anyway. We probably still keep it because we think it's more fun because we get to screw you guys over. So
oh, it's more fun, makes you think of it. So as always, thank you for joining us here. I'm of course Andrew Barchak from Chicago, Illinois.
I'm Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York. It's a thrilling 32.
Right on, Ride Warriors.
Thanks, guys. Good luck.